shadows hide you. I am listening. Our paths converge.
So good to see you.
Hail to you. Never lose hope.
Here, Fred Shadows.
I hear you. It has only begun. Fight on, Fred!
Welcome to episode 491 of Concede, our Hearthstone podcast dedicated to making the competitive side of the game more accessible to you. It is Thursday, April 3rd, 2025 in the evening. Coming to you from Nomergan, Ohio, it's me, Edelweiss. From North Rand, Massachusetts, we have Wicked Good.
Hi.
From Teldrassil, California, we have Megasa.
Hello.
And from all around the world, we have you, dear listeners. This week's episode is brought to you by our producers, Number Theory, Kresh, Beef Squatch, David P., Jeremy T., Bottlecaps, Grumpy Monk, The Burger Club, Kirk Regan, Grizzly Bear, May, SSJ5 Goku, and NY Kiwi. And by our patrons of the week, Incredible Plum and Snowpack. You can go to patreon.com/coinconcede to get perks like thank you at the top of the show, early access to new episodes, one-on-one coaching sessions, and help support the show in the process. If you would like to support the show but cannot do so monetarily, please consider leaving us a 5-star review on your podcast feed of choice, as it always helps other people find the show. So, Life and Ladder, and there's not really news, so Life and Ladder and Decksplanations is basically the show. That said, we are talking about some pretty big balance changes coming to you from the past to be released in the future. This is being recorded offline so that we can do things at the normal recording time, but release at a regular schedule. So thanks again for Creator Discord being able to do that. I've been playing Shutter Shaman, I guess I'll call it. Not meaning to invoke the Shutter Shaman of old, but it's a control shaman that I feel like all the potential win cons revolve around Shutterwalk.
Yeah, I guess. Murmur, really, right? Murmur's... you don't need Murmur, but...
I'm not, no. Maybe I should call it Terran Shaman.
Never mind, because you're playing something weird. I shouldn't assume.
No,
never mind.
No, it's not really that weird. It's maybe a slight variation from one of Zacho's, but not that I went off his list or anything. But it's Terran Shaman. But you can shutter block the Dirty Rats. You can shutter block Rainer, assuming no medevacs, or at least only one medevac. And that still gets people. You can shutter block Incendious, and that can still be good in certain circumstances. I do have the Kragwa thing. Just basically, my big spells are are the Frozen one, which is normal, right? And then Shaladrasil, so that if I happen to get Shaladrasil as a minion, I can do the bounce it, play it, get the stuff, do a Sarah Awakens, dream it back to my hand, rinse, repeat, and
if you just happen to stumble into an infinite loop,
exactly,
then, okay.
But
sure.
back up, we have Kragwa, right? So Kragwa, if you do it that way, then you get to corrupt Shaladrasil, and I definitely beat a male shaman by. I just, by the time they were playing all their paraglides, I already had Kragwa and Shaladrasil, and so I laughed as every turn I shuffled Kragwa into my deck and replayed Corrupted Isera Awakens. And I think they were displeased. So that's been me. Tinkered with some other things, but was kind of in the balance waiting room because we expected that to arrive, and now it has not live as we're recording this, but we know what it's going to be. So what have you been up to in this glacial meta?
Well, I've since it's glacial, I've been freezing a lot of things. I've been playing mostly Protoss Mage.
Really?
did some dalliances with Death Knight because it's the best control deck, and it was fine, but I didn't really like it, and like if like the clears felt awkward, it felt kind of fiddly. I tried to play Location Warlock on stream, that went real bad, real fast.
That's surprising.
I am not smart enough to play that deck. I don't know what it is. Like, I just am allergic to making big things quickly or something. I don't know. I don't even really care why I wasn't doing well with it, but I was just like misordering all my plays, and I'm just like, I need to be kinder to my brain than this. So I ended up stumbling upon, there's been some refinements in the Protoss Mage that are going more all in on just stall and big damage to be able to get over the Death Knights. So they're running double Sleet Skater because everybody's running gigantic things, especially the Starship version of the Death Knight. You just wait for them to launch the Starship, and then you just freeze that forever, and then you gain like 80 armor, and they never kill you.
Yeah.
And it also runs Youthful Brewmasters, so that we just keep clearing and keep doing damage. And I've probably done maybe 100 damage over the course of a game. You also run Bartender Bob, and sometimes you just draw 3 Colossuses.
Colossi?
Colossi.
Oh,
yeah.
goodness.
So sometimes that happens. And that's delightful also. And I've been climbing with it. There are times when you run into an armored Demon Hunter still, and that matchup is like playing Control Priest into Ticketus Warlock. It's just actually impossible. And I was playing last night. I ran into like 3 in a row. So the first one I played it out, and I'm like, I shouldn't be doing this. Then I queued in a second one, and I just insta conceded. I'm like, I'm not doing it. I'm not spending another 20 minutes like struggling for like a 20% chance to win this game. I'm just gonna queue into something else that's better. And I queued into a third one, and then I said, okay, I'm done for the night. Like, that's just like,
I'm so sorry.
It's not even like, oh, like stupid people. Like, I don't even care. Right. It's not even like, it was just, I ran into a pocket, and that pocket just needed to go. I needed to like stop playing while that pocket was happening.
So guess what I ran into 2 times in a row?
Well, it's probably not going to be as good as the other thing that I ran into, but go ahead.
Well, it was a priest.
Okay.
What kind of priest do you think?
Imbue Priest?
No.
Oh, no.
Aggro Protoss?
No, it was like OTK Zarimi with Narrowlex Briarspawn. So it was like a lot of draw. A few early dragons, but it's not an aggro deck, and I sort of lost because I misunderstood that. And then they just go like Narrowlex, Ysera, Briarspawn, Zarimi. You know, so you think like, oh, they haven't played that many dragons, and then they play the last 4 all at once.
Right. Yeah.
And if you have anything in play, the Briarspawns attack immediately. And then they get to just go face with a ton of damage. So I ran into that twice in a row, and
I did see that once, but twice in a row is impressive.
I do think a third time I would properly have a handle on the matchup now that I think I've seen like all the cards. But yeah, I was sort of thinking that it was still sort of an aggro direction, but they run double, not Psychic Scream, but repackage, yeah. So yeah, that was a thing.
Well, I played against a rogue today who played Shaku the Collector on 3.
Oh, I'm sure you loved that.
So Shaku the Collector on 3 into King Tide on 4.
Woo!
So for a person who didn't play when this was originally around,
yes.
Remind me what Shaku the Collector does.
So Shaku the Collector is a 3-mana 2/4 with stealth. And
Used
whenever
to be a 2/3.
Yeah, and whenever it attacks, it adds a random card to your hand from the opponent's class.
Okay.
And then they played King Tide, and in the following turn, they played an agency espionage that came from their deck. Which I will remind you, because you have never seen this card played, 4 mana, shuffle a card from each other class into your deck. They cost 1.
Well, and the King Tide didn't even help with that. It taxed it.
It did not. It did not. It slowed me down, right? Because I think maybe I was able to play one card when I was gonna have, because I would have played like Shield Battery into something, and I just didn't have it. But luckily, I got all of the Protoss spells, and I just ended up blowing everything away. I had a Pocket Dimension that gave me 2 Chrono Boosts. I had so many Chrono Boosts. I was sitting with like 4 Chrono Boosts and a Sleet Skater in my hand at one point, and I couldn't do anything with them because my hand was full. Like I just had all the, like it was like an embarrassment of riches. But they had gotten a Caligos down, because of course they did. At some point, it was just like, it was a whole train wreck of a game. But long story short, Colossus rescued me from that, because I just played 2 of them, and then just that was able to put me out of my misery and just get them out of the game. So I didn't mind as much when I was able to, they could do whatever they wanted, and then, but nothing was actually hurting me, and then I was just able to just like kill them. So yeah. But agency espionage, I was like, oh no, I can't lose this game now, because I'm never going to play Hearthstone again if I lose this game after they played agency espionage on purpose. Like,
there was a replay that Hat posted in the Discord wherein he was playing Imbue Hunter, but he played Grifta, got only bad options, picked give me 3 random legendaries, got Aviana, the Druid one. Played that, got another Aviana in there, and like another Grifta.
Well, I didn't know you could do that.
Or maybe it was that the other Grifta, somehow the 2 of them like created each other in sequence. Yeah. Again. It was absolutely full boards, long animations for 13 turns. And he did pull it out. I had a game that was not nearly that crazy, where I was Location Warlock against a Nebula Shaman. I was forced to play my Ceaseless Expanse a little bit early before they had fully done all of their Nebulas. And then I had Travel Agent in this list. I got Puppet Theater off the Travel Agent. I took their Marin.
Oh no.
Oh my god.
I failed to, when I played the Xerog's Crown, I failed to take AFK because I kind of forgot how she works, and that was really a misplay, because that would have won me the game. But they took AFK, and they had a huge board. But luckily, the Kobold from Marin gave me Omen and a Grifta to steal their one big taunt. And I got exact lethal in the jaws of defeat, just in time to go to work this morning.
Wow.
But overall, I played some Aggro Protoss Priest. I really enjoy that deck, but I've also been playing Location Warlock because I just want to get to Legend. And also, spoiler alert, it's about to be changed a lot, so I figured I might as well play it while it's going. And it really is
while you got him.
Spike your stats as fast as possible. I find it kind of a fun puzzle to play out. How can I spike it in this particular game while not taking too much damage while I'm doing that? And sometimes you can get a ton of them very early, sometimes less so. I had one game today where they had 2 6/2s and I was at 21, but I was like, I'm probably not dead. I'm just going to put them to 8 with my 2 giants on the board. And then they have to clear if they can't kill me, and they couldn't clear. So I was pleased with that. But overall, it's way too good right now. It should be hit. But I'm a little sad because I do enjoy it as a deck. And even though it doesn't use very many new cards except for the Rotheart Dryad, which is a key part of the consistency of the card because she draws you the Sea Giants every time. Yep. And my list has Ceaseless because that helps against the Nebula Shamans and things. But it's not quite the same as the Location Warlock we had before. It feels like a better deck because it is. So I hope it's not completely dead, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. It definitely needs to be worse. My other big life and ladder thing is more of a life thing, which was I managed to take an entirely full glass of orange juice mixed with cranberry juice, sit down at my computer, lift it up, and somehow klutzily drop it and spill the entire thing directly on my laptop keyboard.
Oh my goodness.
And I don't have a desktop, right? Like that is my machine.
Yeah.
So
I've been there.
Remember to back up your computers, kids.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank God that I had a backup of my computer and that I have my documents folder and stuff backed up in the cloud all the time. And that I remember my Apple password. The Apple Store person was so grateful that I said I had a backup and I knew my password. Those two things. So, I mean, it was so much that like the first thing I did was stand up and dump it out over the sink because there was so much liquid.
Oh, gross.
no. It's like you can't even get it into the rice first. You need to actually just like get all the water bailed out. And oh gosh.
And then,
I mean, they tell you
like,
not to do rice.
Yeah,
No.
I put like a cloth in it and then put it upside down. I don't know if this was a good idea or not. Luckily, I still had my Apple Care. So it only ended up being $300 for them to probably replace the whole thing. We'll see. But, I was told, like, expect it to be wiped because the CPU and the SSD are right under the keyboard. So,
Laptop of Theseus.
Yes, it is going to be wiped if they just give you a different one. Then it's going to be wiped.
It's going to be wiped.
Yeah.
I wasn't able to turn on long enough to see if there was, like, I don't think my downloads folder was backed up, but hopefully there was nothing important in my downloads folder. I'm pretty good about
probably
doing
didn't
that.
want to try to turn it. I mean, trying to turn it on anyway is probably just going to do more damage anyway, right? I mean, at least like if you were able to get it turned off in time, then you don't have to worry about it like, shorting anything out as much.
Yeah. So, I mean, really, I'm clumsy enough that the main surprising thing is that I haven't done this before to my computer in all of the years that I've had laptops. I mean, I am someone who, as a kid, I was not allowed to have anything other than water in the car. So many times did I spill sticky stuff all over the car.
Oh, gosh.
My poor brother couldn't have things either. It was just like only water in the car.
So don't feel too bad, because one time when I was a teenager, preteen, I forget exactly. So my dad would always have a bunch of like laptops or other computing devices because there would be grant money that was going to expire if it didn't get used, and so we'd get another thing. So I had, which was very nice, a laptop at a pretty young age. Back then, I took my tea sweetened, like with, considerable amount of sugar. And I very frequently would like watch stuff like laying down with the laptop on my chest. And one time I did this also with a mug of tea on my chest. And I fell asleep.
Oh.
And I woke up damp and having spilled the tea all over the keyboard of the laptop. Yeah, it was quite sticky because and my dad was like, so it might have been okay were it not for the insane amount of sugar you put in your tea.
Yeah, because then the keys are going to stick, and it's not like you can wash it off because,
because it's a laptop.
It's a laptop,
So pro tip, they do sell keyboard skins for MacBooks that will protect from both crumbs and spillage. So, just, that's something that they're not particularly expensive, I don't think. And, like $12 for one of the better ones in this article. So,
yeah,
something to, if you're inclined to have misadventures with liquids, it's might be worth, like, it's kind of like a screen protector for your phone, right? Like I always have a glass screen protector on my phone.
Sure.
Just because I am probably one of the clumsiest people on the face of the planet, and my phone has like a basic case on it, but it falls a lot, and I change the screen protector a lot, but I don't ever have a cracked screen. So
we're an OtterBox house.
Yeah.
I'm on like my third case for this phone. I really need a new phone too. I was like, oh god, am I going to need a new computer? Because I really need a new phone. This phone is older than the pandemic. So.
Oh yeah, you do need a new phone.
The battery is going out, and I also got liquid damage on that, and so the Face ID doesn't work. and they won't fix that for liquid damage. They're like, just get a new one or live without it. So
they have phones with touchscreens now, you know.
Well,
you can play Hearthstone on them and everything, you know.
I know. Well, I have been having to play Hearthstone mobile, and that was another reason to play Location Warlock, was that I felt like I could do that without a tracker.
See, that's the reason to play Protoss Mage, because it tells you exactly how much you're going to hit your opponent in the face for, so you don't have to keep track of it.
That's true. You don't have to keep track of it. And then luckily I was loaned a PC laptop to use for work, and that I'm using to record. And so I did put Hearthstone on it for now. And man, the deck tracker is so much better for PC. I'm really missing my Mac, but the deck tracker is so much better for PC.
It's a lot better. That's why I mostly play on my gaming PC. So.
Yeah.
But, anyhow, we got a little bit of news, and then most of the news is in Decksplanations, because we're going to talk about this balance patch that we've been talking about but not talking about. So we're going to talk about that, but after we don't talk about it and talk about this.
Gadgets and Gazette always gets the scoop.
So really just two very quick things that are not patch related. One is that if you are interested in playing in the qualifiers, by the time that you hear this, the signups for the next open qualifiers will be open. It also may very well be too late for you to... Well, you can sign up, but you're going to be waitlisted almost certainly if you haven't already signed up.
Yeah.
But they do have... They've increased the number of participants in each one to 448 from, I think it was 256 the last time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
sounds right.
So that's not nothing. Registration will be open by the time you hear this on all three servers. The tournaments are April 12th. So the Asia Pac one is going to be at midnight. Well, is that midnight? Oh, that's midnight UTC, which I don't know what time that is in any time. It's
basically on April 13th.
Yeah. Oh, April 13th. Okay. So April 13th at like noon, I guess. Either noon or 11, because 4 p.m. UTC is like, I think we're 4 hours behind UTC on Eastern time, I think. I don't know. I only work with like dates for a living, but I should know this, but whatever. But anyway, it's going to be on April 13th in whatever your local time zone is. So, clear your calendar for that. There's going to be 8 rounds of Swiss? Am I making that up? They say 7 or 8 rounds of Swiss. It's probably going to be 8 rounds. I would be very shocked if it's 7, unless a lot of people sleep in that day. So it's going to be 8 rounds of Swiss, followed by a cut to top 16. The top 16 will play single elimination down to top 4. And the top 4 of each qualifier will be invited to the Masters Tour playoffs for that region. So, even if it looks like it's full, sign up anyway, because there are wait lists and there are always people who don't show up. So you may be able to get in anyway.
Yeah.
And it will not be in a Franken meta. So you will actually have a chance to get like a reasonable lineup going and have some time to practice.
I was one of those people who didn't show up last time because I played a little bit of the Franken meta and I was like, nah, nope. This ain't the one.
Yeah.
This is the only one that I'm considering doing just because it's my spring break this coming week and I'm between grad school classes. So I could actually do some prep for once. Although I also really need to do some work around the apartment because it is a disaster. Not in what you can see in the camera, but everywhere else.
That's actually just a green screen of a tidied up apartment, right? So,
my husband actually has a Zoom background at work that is just a picture of what would be behind him in his office when he's sitting there. At the exact right height, like from the same webcam. He just took a picture of it without him in it, and then that's his Zoom background so that it can be as messy as he wants behind him.
I have to have it blurred because I have all of this stuff behind me. And when I'm in like serious business meetings, it's I don't need to be judged for all the plushies that I have sitting on the shelf behind me.
Yes, this stuff, for those who can't see, is like Pokemon plushies and Hearthstone prints and other nerd.
Yes. I have my Alliance Footman statue from BlizzCon 2019 and everything else. So, and speaking of plushies, if you are sad about Zerg getting nerfed and you really want to have Zerglings around you at all times, you can pre-order a 9-inch plush Zergling, which is the most adorable Zergling that I think I have ever seen. This is not strictly Hearthstone news, but I mean, it is, because we've been playing with Zerglings for the past 4 months. So he is $30. Hopefully he'll still be $30 by the time you actually get charged for it with everything that's going on. And he's 9 inches. He's got little tusks. He's got an adorable little smile. His eyes are closed. He is very, very cute. So I'm tempted to get one to go with my plush Protoss probe that I have from, I don't even remember when I got that. I must have gotten that from the Blizzard Gear store at some point, which is also behind me on the shelf, by the way, along with everything else. So, I guess I knew that it was going to the priest class like 5 years ago when I bought it. But anyhow, that's it. That's the news. Because we have a big patch to talk about, and that is most of it. So let's do that.
All right, so by the time you hear this, we will have a balanced patch live. There are, I believe, 12 nerfs here and 5 buffs, and then a few bug fixes as well. So we obviously, talking about this, we do not yet know what the post-balance meta is going to look like, so we will be doing our best to predict what a fix might be. But of course, we haven't seen it yet, so we will, in a sense, all find out together. But I think it's probably best if we just kind of read through the nerfs and then talk about them, and then read through the buffs.
You want to do the dev comment before we go into the nerfs?
I can't see the dev comment.
Okay, I can read the dev comment. So the dev comment that's going along with this is, these changes are a continuation of the changes we made in patch 32.0 to remove unfun play patterns and give Into the Emerald Dream the best chance to shine. Many of these changes are to cards and strategies that are unfun to play against, even if they're not overly powerful. They're mentioning armor DH without mentioning armor DH there. We're also adjusting a few early power outliers, including buffs. We don't normally do balance changes this early after an expansion, but we thought making a few changes now would best align our goals for the set with our patch schedule. So
yes, this is one where, if I remember correctly, we're having an early mini set in this expansion, so they have less time.
We have a 3-month cycle as opposed to a 4-month cycle for this one. So everything's going to be kind of compressed. They've normally been giving us about 2 weeks before a balance patch after a set releases, so this is a little bit sooner. But like, the problems with this meta, I think, were pretty quickly evident, and like, there's been some shifts in prevalence. Like, armor DH was, I want to say, like 15% of the meta like a week ago, and it's down to like 7 or 8 as of Thursday when we're recording this. But like, there really isn't a lot of counterplay for a lot of these things. In some ways, a lot of things feel kind of rock paper scissorsy. Like, there's some very, very polarized matchups where you just lose in deck selection, and even when you're not doing that, like, there's just a lot of the matchups, they feel very one-sided a lot of the time, or if they're not, they take a really long time to resolve a lot of the time.
Yeah, and there's some things, right? I feel like armor DH is one of those that can be quite polarizing, right? Where it's like, there's the stuff there's a chance, and then there's the stuff that it just beats, and there's the things where it's like, well, if you don't win by turn 5, maybe 6, right? I guess 6, because it's like turn 4 is Arcanite, turn 5 is the thing that resurrects it, turn 6 is when you have to kill them because otherwise they kill off the 5/3 and everything starts coming back. So But yeah, there's also, it's like, okay, you play aggro and you're hoping not to hit armor DH or blood
DK.
DK, unless they just don't have it and you blow them out, right? Yeah. Which there's not too many decks that can do that right now.
Yeah. I was very pleased with myself earlier today when I was playing the Protoss Priest. They had a couple leeches out. I went face. I thought if they have Hideous Husk, I'm doomed anyway. Go face. Mm-hmm. They did have Hideous Husk. I cleared it. I thought I'm probably doomed, but I do have a lot of discounts on my mothership, so I'll wait. They played a second Hideous Husk with a bunch more. But I still managed to pull it out with mothership because I had like 6 or 7 discounts on it. And that's why I love the motherships. But usually that doesn't work. Yeah. Like usually if you... And there are some decks that have no plan B. And even for the Protoss Priest, like you really do want to get your plan A down.
Yeah. And like the thing with like some of these decks, right, is like normally when we talk about like favored or unfavored matchups, we're talking about like 55 to 60% is like a very favored matchup, and like 40 to 45% is a very unfavored matchup. And like the armor DH matchup spread is like it's got like 75% win rates and like 25% win rates.
Yeah.
Like it's just like that stark, right? And it's not, which is like nothing's unwinnable, but also yes, your opponent does disconnect occasionally, but like that's not a game plan. And so I think that's one of the things that they're really trying to smooth out, is try to get some of these matchups closer to like 55-45 than like 75-25, which is where I don't want to say every matchup is like that because it's not, but there's a lot of really dark greens and really dark reds on the matchup page on HS Replay when you're looking at it.
Yeah. And then that leads to decks like Imbue Hunter. Hopefully maybe we can build an Imbue Hunter that has a little bit of a less polarized matchup, because right now it's rewarded for really just going all in and beating Armor DH and Nebula Shaman. It has a 70% win rate into Armor DH, 67% win rate into Nebula Shaman. But then like into Zerg Token Hunter, it's less than 20.
Yeah. And even Protoss Mage, it's like 28, which is Yeah,
Protoss Rogue, 25.
And for those of you who have been playing a long time, like Control Priest into Ticketus Warlock was like a 20% matchup.
I think I never won
literally unwinnable. Yeah, it felt actually unwinnable. So that's how bad like that is. Or like there have been some other like hard counters. Like it's basically like Control. If you really want to go back far, it's like Control Warrior into Freeze Mage, right? And that was the original like unwinnable matchup. Like that's how bad it is.
To be clear, the Freeze Mage is the one that loses that.
Oh yeah, that's right. Sorry. Yeah, but yes.
I can't remember what was the deck. There was the worst one I can ever remember was it was like 5% of Boar Priest into something. What was the thing that it just like literally could not beat?
Oh, I don't remember.
Probably an aggro deck, right? Maybe not.
I feel like it was something that just destroyed its win condition. It wasn't Ticketus because that was wrong.
Sure.
It was I don't know, the Druid that made everything in both players' decks cost 1 or something like that. There was a Druid with a Celestial something.
Oh, God.
Celestial
alignment? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, painful memories. I hated that card.
So
and not because it brutalized Boar Priest. That's fine, but I just despised that card with every fiber of my being.
We've just referenced some of the historical boogeymen of Hearthstone. So that being said, that's why we're getting nerfs this quickly. Is really what we're trying to say.
Yes. Yeah. Plus, if they wait as long as we usually, normally. It feels like they get the meta right 2 weeks before the mini set. Now we're getting the mini set like 3 to 4 weeks earlier probably than we normally do. So they can't really wait to get the meta right in the same way. Since we've been talking about Armor DH, the change to Armor DH is that Arcanite Defense Crystal is going from a 4-mana 3/4 to a 5-mana 4/5. So the whole interaction... And this is something that we mentioned as just neatly fixes the problem.
Yeah, it's interesting, and in sort of two ways, right? Like one, you can't resurrect it as your 4-cost death rattle anymore. Two, even if you wanted it in the bigger pool, like it is sort of the worst thing to have in your bigger pool, right? Like you don't want to get just a 4 or 5 Arcanite. You'd rather get like a full starship. And now there's a chance if you like have built it up with other pieces and you want to resurrect the full starship, that you resurrect just the Arcanite piece.
Yeah. Well, also that it doesn't like multiply, right? Because it's when you have the 7-drop that summons the 5-drop who summons the 4-drop, right?
Yeah.
So then you're not getting as many pieces into it, and then like that deck actually wins against the slower decks by Exodaring once it's gotten like significantly ginormous, and then just doing attack equal to the starship's attack, and then that's really its win condition. And if you can't get enough of those pieces down, then you just don't have that win condition over the slower decks anymore.
Yeah.
So that's the other way that it's going to really just make it not be able to go over the slow decks, which is what it can do right now.
My hope is that like people switch over to Greenwing Ballhog and it just is a smooth transition, and that will be good. Maybe not as good, but I think differently good. And
it'll be healthier.
Kind of importantly is that if you were in a matchup between Ballhog Greenwing versus Arcanite Defense Crystal, you would lose to Arcanite Defense Crystal. And so with the Arcanite version just being killed here, I think we get the chance to see if the Greenwing Ballhog version has any legs. And I think that was always kind of the more intended direction. Maybe the Dread Seeds were, although you get into board space issues pretty frequently there, I think.
Yeah, and they put Ballhog into core for a reason, right? Like obviously that's the other thing, is that they just put Ballhog back into core, so that's clearly like intended for it, and that's still a fair amount of damage. But there's a big difference between getting a lot of healing and getting a lot of armor.
Yes,
that's a big difference.
That allows games to end in a much different way. You know, if we're having games where our way of trying to counter combo is just that we are trying to armor up so much that then it just makes the control mirrors absolutely miserable. And it also makes you feel very demoralized as aggro, even when you do have a decent chance against a deck like that. When you lose, it's really demoralizing because you end up spending much longer in the games that you're losing. That's always true to aggro for a little bit to some extent, but it makes it much more true unless, you know, and it makes it really important that you know when to concede. In DH, there's also relatively low sample, but the Menagerie Demon Hunter that we mentioned last week is doing pretty well, and there's some other versions of it on HS Guru. And some of them use Ballhog and Ravenous Fellhunter within the list, not the 7-cost Fellbeast, just the Fellhunter that resurrects the Ballhog, because you're trying to win early. But that gives you a little bit more staying power if you don't win super early, and a little bit of healing. So I would love to see Demon Hunter just experiment in other directions without having the armor DH kind of preventing experimentation.
Yeah. I mean, Arcanite Defense Crystal has been kind of one of the quiet problems for a while, right? Just like, I mean, we like this has kind of exacerbated it, but it's been a problem even in the last meta, where just like having this easy access to neutral armor gain has really slowed games down in general. And
led to things like the armor warlock, right? Which, you know, whether these things were super real or not in terms of win rate, they still existed and had this kind of negative play pattern of resummoning the same death rattle over and over for a ton of armor because it was 6 armor back then. And
same thing with the hunter too, right? Like the hunter could get like 80 armor in a game, which like hunter should not ever get 80 armor.
Sorry, Sidisi.
Even Sidisi, I think, would probably agree with me on that one. That's just like, that's not normal, right?
There's a reason he plays Hunter.
And like, when you think of like the Terran stuff, it's like, if you were going slower, you have Arcanite with armor, but then also Vikings are armor. And if you got like Reborn keyword on a starship that had Arcanite, and so it's still, even without doing cube things, you've got Arcanite, you've got launching the ship for Arcanite and maybe Vikings, and then you've got Raynor to launch again. So Death Knight, same thing, right?
Yeah.
It's one of the death rattles on there. Like, yes, they're making this board of big minions, but that spell burst, sort of ideally for them, is also triggering the Arcanite death rattle. And so we just and Shaman has the ice sculptures on top of it.
Yeah.
So,
it's like an arms race. If you have this level of armor, then how much damage output do you need, right, for any other decks to stand a chance? And then it becomes hard to de-escalate, in a sense, of the damage versus the armor. And healing, because there's a cap on that, except kind of for, max health stuff like Leech DK, which we'll get to in a second, because there's a cap on it, it isn't problematic in the same way in terms of causing the damage to have to ratchet up in response. Or causing games where you just have to concede because they armored up, which feels terrible.
I forgot to even mention, because this is a new thing, but the Ancient of Yore, right?
Oh yeah, that's another 10 armor. Yeah.
Yeah.
That you can just throw in your deck.
2 cards. Like, that's crazy. Yeah. I feel like that single-handedly can slow down games, just because it's 10 armor and 2 cards, right? And okay, the first turn you're having to sort of do nothing for it, but then the next turn you can still play your defensive tools while you're getting it. So
I mean, Sleet Skater too, right? Like, I mean, Sleet Skater has gotten so much better because there are all these giant starships that are fueled by the like recurring all of these death rattle starship pieces, mainly Arcanite Defense Crystal, and it gets silly when you just hold the miniaturized Sleet Skater and say, "Go ahead, launch your starship." And then I'm going to gain 30 armor when you do that. And I don't really care because I can go over the top. But it is an arms race. And I think getting at least a neutral armor game, like there are classes that, like Mage is an armor class. It's legitimate, maybe not as much as they're getting off of Sleet Skater, but it is legitimate for Mage to get armor. But and same thing with Warrior to some extent. Like Warrior's still going to have access to starships. They may still run them. But Warrior's an armor class. But when you have Hunter and Warlock and Death Knight to a lesser extent having this level of armor, it makes the game so much longer, and it just makes it really, you start to feel the length of the games after a while. So I think just stepping back from that in general is a good thing.
And like, I know Shaman is kind of the everything class, right? Like, but it's weird sometimes that they're getting this much armor too. And I really am like a little surprised that they didn't put Plate Breaker in core. Like, not that solves the problem, but just that it would give people something to try. Sometimes I feel like cards like that can be a little bit canary in the coal mine, where it's like, okay, if people are like seriously running this, maybe this needs to be addressed.
Yeah, but I mean, it feels like we still have Renathal in the meta. Right, because everybody's at like minimum 40 for the most part, because there's so much armor in like with exceptions, but there are always exceptions to decks that weren't playing Renathal. But like, it still feels like you're starting at 40 health because you're eventually getting 10 armor somewhere along the way.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you're just running one hero card, you're at 35 nerfed Renathal, which people still played.
Yeah.
So I think this makes sense too. It makes the Arcanite Defense Crystal also a lot slower. It still only gains 4 armor, so if you're not armor DH, you're still playing it. It is a fair bit worse. Like, yes, it's 2 extra stats, 1 extra attack, 1 extra health, and more in your starship, but it's just so much slower to get down. And you're not getting unless you can give it Reborn or whatever, like Death Knight can. Then that still might be worth.
but it's going to be harder to do that because it's going to cost you one more mana to like get it down with a Brittle Bone Buccaneer, or even like Orbital Moon is a card that they'll play now, which is the 1 mana spell that if you played something adjacent to it, or you give it Taunt and Lifesteal, and if you played an adjacent card, you also give it Reborn.
Right.
So, but again, you have to get that to work out, and you have to have enough mana, which is going to be more difficult now to be able to make that happen.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of classes that have tons of health, Hideous Hulk is also being hit. Hideous Hulk is going from Leech's Steal 2 more health to Leech's Steal 1 more health.
Hideous Husk, not Hideous Hulk.
Hideous.
It's wrong in the show notes.
Hideous. Okay,
I will
say it again.
Sorry.
Yep.
So Hideous Husk is going from Leech's Steal 2 more health to Leech's Steal 1 more health.
I seriously underestimated this card.
Yeah, I think we all did. We thought that it needed to be for the rest of the game effect. It super doesn't. Imagine, like, oh my god, the gnashing of teeth and rending of garments that would be happening if that was a rest of the game effect. Like, I can only imagine.
Oh, it'd be the best deck in the game. Like, no contest. It like you would just murder people and be unkillable, because surprisingly there's a bunch of turns where the leeches just aren't cleared, right? Like, a lot more often than I sort of anticipated. And that would just be even more frequent if it was a battle cry that happened for the rest of the game. And so now, like, you've played Husk and suddenly you're just, again, killing people through armor.
Yeah.
It's good that it wasn't a battle cry. I was wrong. Even though I was excited about that, I was super wrong. And while my initial reaction was to be a little bit sad about this, it's probably still good. Maybe it's the break point, but I don't think so, because just playing the draw thing and the other one, playing the other leech cards on their own, not as good for gaining max health, but still good for board control, right? Like, there'll be early boards. The fact that, like, oh, well, it only does 2 damage, but it does that third bit of damage from the leech. Like, they're sort of sneaky good in the ways that as a Death Knight, you can just set up for the leeches to always, deal the finishing blows at the end of your turn. And then if they don't have anything, you're just casually siphoning away their life.
Yeah. And increasing your max health at the same time, which is the other piece of it, right? This exists at the same time as Airlock Breach. Yeah. So they already have, pay 6, gain 10 max health. And then they're also gaining max health, passively from the leeches. And they don't need to gain 3 each.
It's
that's
so
fine.
Much.
It's a lot.
And also, 2 of the worst matchups for Leech Death Knight are Location Warlock and Armored Demon Hunter. So you hit those, you don't hit Leech Death Knight. Yeah. I mean, yes, you kind of are hitting it with the Arcanite Crystal, but there's versions of it that don't run the starships at all. And it might still be fine with the starships. We'll have to see.
I think it will be. Because, the power of that... You play Arcanite just because it's sort of the best thing to increase the power of your starship quickly so that you can get to 10 attack.
And also that it gives it taunt.
And it gives it taunt. But normally you need the spell burst in there anyway, so you can immediately summon things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was... I think Dragonbird in our Discord said that she was playing Food Fight Warrior, and somebody had played the spell burst that triggers a death rattle on 2, and then she did Food Fight, and then they played a spell, and she got a Briar Spawn Drake, and they conceded.
Oops.
That's delightful. I love when people get hoist on their own petards. That's fantastic. Yeah.
So, speaking of decks, kind of slow decks like that, I'll mention this because it affects a lot of decks. We have Ceaseless Expanse. It's going from 100 mana to 125 mana. So,
I like
25%.
ceaseless. Yeah, I don't personally have a problem with it, but fine.
I mean, it's a neutral legend. I mean, if I'm going to get on my neutral legendary high horse, then fine. You know, like, it probably should be worse. It is still worse than it was, just because we don't have as many things that are making lots of little creatures that die off, unless you're playing like Imbue Mage, which, I mean, it is run in Imbue Mage when Imbue Mage is a thing.
Yeah. I mean, like, I fully acknowledge that I have preferential bias here in the sense that I like playing Ceaseless Expanse, and I don't particularly get aggrieved when it's used against me because I like playing it.
I mean, I like my signature copy too, right? So
yeah,
it's
exactly.
like, you know.
I have its signature. It's very pretty. Yeah. I sort of disagreed with Zacho's assertion that like making it a 10/10 did nothing. I sort of felt like it was a nice way of it, you know, being a worse card that does not threaten to kill immediately while still preserving what I sort of think of as the cool thing it does, which is allow you to clear a board and gain initiative at the same time, or do something that would otherwise be sort of very low tempo on the same turn. I don't have a sense of how much slower 125 is. I think probably for a lot of things it will be way, way slower. Maybe for an Imbue Mage, not, because they're just summoning so many minions that are dying.
It's probably only 1 to maybe 2 turns slower, which is still a significant amount. But if you think about when it gets to 20, you're like, okay, their turn, my turn, then it'll be active. By that point in the game, there's so many minions dying, there's so much stuff being drawn.
It depends on the decks.
It depends on the decks. It does depend on the decks. But it's probably not as many as it. It's not like 4 turns more or something like that, because by that point, there's more stuff going on in the game.
I think what's really weird about it is that when it's a thing that's in so many decks, you have just a bunch of instances where it's like, well, they're active at the same point, right? It's slower activation for one person and the other. So this is, you know, primarily hitting the cases or I guess helping the decks who do not run this card, which is not that many decks right now.
Yeah. But I mean, the games are slower, right? So the other thing is that it's going to be active because the games are slower. It's still going to be active more often. And like, I'm okay with not every class getting a neutral board clear. Like, that's okay. Yeah. Again, like, this goes again. I know I'm on my high horse about neutrals, but it does, like, it legitimately does make the games feel samey when you have everybody having access and making it more of a choice, right? Like, that's what this is doing. This is making it more of a decision where, am I going to be able to get this active enough to include it? Which, if you are a pure control deck, yes, because I want the game to go forever, right?
Well,
but not every deck wants that, and I think there were enough decks that could play it that could justify it, even though they didn't necessarily want the game to go that long.
And I do think that this may well put it in the range where it's like, if this was your expected clear to turn things around against an aggressive thing, that's not going to happen. Like, you probably will have already won by the time it's active against something aggressive, or lost, because you either utilized your other clears or didn't. And the likelihood that you're getting to the point of this being active and is the clear that saves you against something more aggressive, I think is going to be much less frequent.
Yeah, I think the main use case for this going forward is going to be, assuming that Imbue Mage is viable, is going to be there. Because...
Sure, or Paladin, right?
Well, it's specifically in Imbue Mage, because in order to get Ascena to actually end the game, you need your opponent's board to be clear. And it's very difficult to do that and pay the 8 mana for Asina on the same turn, because by the time that you have Asina live, your opponent is generally generating a bunch of stuff. Like when I was playing the Imbue Mage, the only way that I was able to get through something like a Paladin when there were Paladins was to be able to ceaseless on the same turn and then play Asina and then hero power and use whatever residual minions I had left over for lethal. But again, that's also a deck that intends to make a lot of little crappy minions and have them die. So it makes sense there. But again, that's a legitimate choice, where in some other kind of like a mid-range deck, it may no longer make sense because you're just not expecting the game to go to that.
Yeah, like it might not make sense. Well, Location Warlock's being hit in other ways, as we'll talk about next, but it might not make sense in something like Location Warlock anymore, where it was already not necessarily in every single build, because then you're trying to spike earlier. You're ideally ending the game earlier. It's less of a plan B for decks that are trying to end the game earlier.
Yeah.
Speaking of Location Warlock, there are 2 cards in there that are being hit. One is Seaside Giant, which is going from 10 mana and costs 2 less per location activation to 9 mana, but it only costs 1 less per location activation. And also Spawning Pool, this hits all of the Zerg decks, is going from 1 mana to 2 mana.
So, a sneaky thing I love about the Seaside change, it's a slight buff to Imbue Shaman. It removes a bad 10 from the pool. Meaning the 10s are the mech that summons a mech and Prior Spawn Drake and the other dragon, the runaway Blackwing or something. There might be a few others in there, but removing the vanilla 8/8 from the pool just means that the try and evolve into 10s thing is even better, which we have seen 0 Imbue Shaman, so
and for good reason. It does not have a good win rate on the stat sites. Yeah, I almost wonder whether, because 9 mana costs 1 less, that goes from you get it to 0 and 5 activations. You don't necessarily need to get it to 0 to play it, but you get it to 0 and 5 activations, so you get it to 0 and 9 activations.
It's a lot.
I mean, you just don't play it for 0 anymore, right?
You just never play it for 0,
except Horizon's Edge.
Even then,
you kind
right?
of need
That's
specifically.
Yeah.
It's still slower.
Even then, you need Horizon's Edge.
Well, it's like Horizon's Edge plus Scrapbook Student, right?
Yeah, I mean, even then, though, I don't know if you're going to really be able to go all in on the locations as much. Though I guess they're not hitting the locations as much of it. It's basically what this is going to mean is that you're going to be less likely to be able to get Seaside Giants out at the same time that you're spiking with the Ultralisks.
Right.
And I think that's really what it comes down to, because like if you're doing the Horizon's Edges, you probably aren't also doing the Ultralisks at the same time. If you are getting all that to happen all at once, or you're copying the Horizon's Edge and you have extra, and you have like the Summoner to get double Ultralisks or whatever, like, yeah, you won that game. Fine. But that's not going to happen all the time. So it's going to be less likely that you're going to consistently spike with a board of multiple 8/8s on like 5 or 6, where that's pretty expected now.
The Spawning Pool is a pretty big hit there as well, because it makes your curve a lot. It makes your curve a lot worse. It's a lot harder to just get that in, and that Spawning Pool would be kind of 2 things. One, even if you just get 1, it's like 2 discounts on your Seaside Giants, plus it's a great activator for your Horizon's Edge. Like I would set up turns with the Spawning Pool, and it, if we're still playing Location Warlock, we're probably still playing Spawning Pool, but it's just much harder to fit that in with everything else that you're trying to do.
And you probably lose a tap, right? If you were going Location, tap, Cavern.
That's not insignificant.
And
you're
you're also not playing minions on 2 if you want to, right? Like you're not playing the Zerglings out on 2. You're waiting until 3. Like going from 1 mana to 2 mana is the
biggest change.
It is the biggest change. It's also twice as much, but it just means that you're not able to just like fit it in with mana you would have floated otherwise, and that's the biggest difference.
And it's not free off Nidus Worm, right?
Yeah.
Like if you Nidus Worm on 3 and hit Spawning Pool, you can't just play it right away anymore. So yeah, anytime a mana increases from 1 to 2, like it's just so much bigger than any of the other numbers.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty huge change. And I think also because the Seaside Giants are slower now, it has been somewhat that you kind of can do it. Ideally, you want the Ultralisks and the Seaside Giants coming out together. I can see how, that for the opponent is not very fun. But if you only drew one or the other, you could still maybe get a Seaside out with the Horizon's Edge if you didn't get the Ultralisk. Now it would be a lot worse without the Ultralisk. World 8 was suggesting to me doing something like Dark Pact. This is before the changes. He hasn't seen the changes, but just like if you don't draw Ultralisk Caverns, you can do Dark Alley Pact, and then you can get it back with Endgame as another possibility. So I don't know if the deck might end up going in that kind of direction, but you can't rely on the Seaside Giants as an alternative early spike. If we're running it at all, it's like a later game refill.
A question about Evolve. So if I recall correctly, they recently made a change to the way Evolve works, so that now if there is a mana cost minion higher than 10, you're still just fishing 10s.
Yeah. 10s still always evolve into 10s no matter what the pool looks like above 10.
So, and which, like, great, we only have Mountain Giant at 12, and we lost
you have all the
Guardian.
You have all the Protoss minions at 12.
Oh, right. Yeah, sure. Oh, yeah, that would be silly. But I mean, I think if you evolve something that already is a 10, it just heals, right? Or does it roll?
No, I think it still will evolve into another 10.
Really?
It used to be that way. That's how it used to work originally, is that it would, if there was nothing for it to evolve up to, it would just regenerate itself effectively.
Okay.
I would think now that it would just re-roll because it's evolving into a 10 drop.
Yeah, I guess I felt like I had done this and like had, giant into giant, but maybe that was just...
It might also
I think it wouldn't even do anything.
It can hit itself, right? Like you have a chance. So I don't know this for sure, but I would assume you have a chance for it to hit itself. Like if it's already a giant, there's a chance that it might just hit giant again.
Right. Well,
I think you're like, that was like with Sea Giant or something, one of the ones that cost more than 10 and there was nothing else in the pool and it would just roll into itself. I think that's what, because like the original way that it was, it just nothing would happen. Like if you tried to devolve a Hex Frog, it would just be a Hex Frog, and like people would buff their Hex Frogs because they wouldn't be able to get devolved, right? Like that was a thing that we did back in the day, which is that sounds like okay, Grandpa. Well, let's go get you into your easy chair. But like, like we used to buff our Hex Frogs because they couldn't get devolved, and that's the way we liked it. But yeah.
Well, regardless of whether it's a huge difference or not, I do think just Seaside Giant, again, being out of that pool. The other reason, apart from Imbue, is we still have the Whizbang card where you evolve a thing and summon a copy of it.
Oh yes, the one that we revealed. And 4 mana. Yes.
Yeah, and there's still good locations to use. Yeah, matching outfits. You may struggle to get it cheap enough, but you still could do a like Terrans plus, because Starport, right? Plus the Hunter location plus Fairy Tale is sort of the location package there, and you could go for a big, evolve onto Seaside that way. Maybe it's too slow now, but I do feel like the sort of power level that you can get out of that play is quite high.
I mean, maybe Imbue Shaman will just suddenly be a thing now.
Yeah, could be. Speaking of all the, it's not just Terran, but you mentioned Spawning Pool. There's a lot of StarCraft changes.
Yeah.
There's a lot of StarCraft changes, yes. So Liftoff is going from 3 mana to 4 mana. Chrono Boost is going from 4 mana to 5 mana. And Artanis is going from 7 mana to 8 mana.
But curiously, they didn't hit Nidus Worm here.
Maybe because Spawning Pool is just such a big hit that they don't need to.
Yeah, I think so. Like, they've hit Zerg a lot already. Yeah. I guess I don't mind them not hitting Nidus Worm. Certainly, Nidus Worm is the one of them that doesn't do anything proactive. Like, it does a little bit of mana discount. But the fact that you are putting Spawning Pool from 1 to 2, again, means that you can't play it for free on the turn 3 anymore. So there's no way that, like, you can get anything on board the turn that you're, if you use the draw spell the turn that you can, right? Which you could with those other 2 cards.
And I guess you could look at it like they're only hitting 1 card per faction, with the exception of Artanis, who really ought to have been put up to 8 at the same time the Kerrigan and Raynor were, except that Protoss was in such a bad shape that they figured they'd give it a break. And then we saw that was a mistake. But like, and we talked a little bit at the end of the last week's show about like how have every one of these classes having arcane intellect on steroids was incentivizing people to play those factions, right? So, and then once you do that, like once you're playing arcane intellect on steroids, you need to play the cards it's going to draw, which just puts you into a StarCraft deck. So making those worse, and I mean, like in some decks you were playing Chrono Boost just for the charge, right? Like, so 5 mana to draw 2 and get a charge is a little bit more fair than 4 in this meta specifically. I think that Liftoff being 4 mana being worse than an arcane intellect, I think is good. Mm-hmm. Then you have a choice between, okay, am I going to run that, or am I going to run like quality assurance or all you can eat? Like that, like wasn't really a choice because Liftoff was so much better than those cards. And now it's more of a legitimate choice. Like, do I really want to go all in on the Terran stuff, or do I want to go in more of a menagerie build, or, or whatever, or a taunt build, or whatever it is? Like, it's kind of on the same level as those other draw spells, which, and just getting those to be less prevalent will make the games feel less samey because you're seeing all the same cards over and over.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, the charge was nuts.
Yeah.
It stood out partially because he was the only charge in the game. They rotated all the other charge, except the one where if it didn't start in your deck, this has charge, which like
that pirate count. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or Dark Gifts, right? Dark Gifts, sure. You can give things charge with Dark Gifts. So yeah.
But both of those by definition are not super reliable.
Whereas Chrono Boost was just like the ultimate reliable, right? Like you would run a package of just Chrono Boost and Artanis and like maybe one other Protoss card.
Yeah. You'd run like Construct Pylons in Druid to make Artanis cheaper.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that was pre-rotation, but like Protoss Aggro Priest would just run that and hallucinate, because you may as well run hallucinate and get more charges. And then you don't care if they take more damage.
I mean, my first reaction to this was 5 mana is a lot, and it is a big increase for it. I think it hits it pretty hard, but it's also true, like, would you play a 3 mana 3/4 charge and 2 mana draw 2 targeted? Like, yeah, it's worse that you have to play them together. But that's not a terrible rate for those two things. So
yeah, I think it just, these kind of demonstrate how when you think about what they were doing, these cards were insane.
Yeah, but they had to be. They had to be because they were a mini set in a 6-set meta. They had to.
Yeah. Right, but that means they need to go really, really hard. I was resistant to this thought, but I think listening to you, Wicked, and listening to Zacho talk about it, I'm now on board with the like, you kind of have to let StarCraft, if not die, be like, much, much less appealing because it just, as it stood, even diminished, Terran stuff feels like, yeah, maybe it doesn't kill you straight up, but it still often clears the board and makes a big minion when you launch that starship.
And it's not the card that you look at that kills you, right? Like,
right.
That's the thing that's really kind of insidious about it, is that it's making everything else work so much better. And it is the card that's actually sneaky, one of the strongest cards of the deck, but it doesn't look like it because it's at most doing 3 damage to you, right? But it is really just the grease in the wheels. Like I've been, like I said, I've been playing a lot of. Yeah.
Oh.
The registration for the Masters Tour is open right this second. Yeah.
Okay.
Stand by.
All right.
Yeah. Sorry for that.
I'll keep going on my soliloquy.
Raw audio listeners.
I'll keep going on my rant, and then you can do that in the meantime.
Got it.
But I mean, that's the thing, that it's not the card that kills you, but it just makes everything go so much smoother. Like, I've been playing a lot of Protoss Mage lately, and the games where I don't draw Chrono Boost are the games that I usually lose, because those are the games where, okay, well, now I'm drawing into a shield battery, or I'm drawing into a proton cannon, or I'm getting a resonance coil, which is going to get me another Chrono Boost, or it's going to get me another photon cannon, or whatever. It just gets you, or it's going to find me the Colossi, or it's going to find me Artanis to discount everything. Like, it just keeps the flywheel going. And when you don't have that, are the games when you feels like you're stuck in the mud. So I think that's really, and the thing is, this kind of similar with when I was playing Terran Warrior before rotation, it was the same thing. Like, if I didn't find Liftoff, like I got to the point where I started mulliganing for those cards, because if I have those cards, I will find everything else. If I don't have those cards, and everything's going to be so much slower, I'm going to fall behind. So making those cards come at a higher cost not only makes them come out slower, but it also makes it harder to keep them in the mulligan. Like, it's hard to keep a 5-mana draw 2 in the mulligan. Like, that's like keeping Hagatha in the mulligan. You don't do that. But you probably still ought to if you're playing Protoss. But that'll make Protoss worse overall.
Yeah.
So as someone who really enjoys the Protoss Priest, I do hope that it's still playable, because the mothership it's a little bit like the Countess, but a little more consistent. It's a fun sort of win condition to the deck, hence an alternate. It will be harder to be just super aggressive with the Chrono Boost going to 5 mana and Artanis going to 8 mana. So it might have to shift into a slightly different deck, and then maybe Aggro Priest looks like something else. But there's still, just aggressive priests. So, and it is really nice now to have the Illusory Greenwing plus Scale Replicas, an alternate draw engine in priest. That actually works really well. So,
yeah, I love Illusory Greenwing. It just, that is a cool targeted draw thing, right?
Yeah.
That you have this neutral, like, not crazy powerful, but pretty good, right? That just interacts with these different targeted draw things in different classes, right? Quality assurance, Scale Replica.
All you can eat.
Yeah, all you can eat.
The Curator.
Which is available to everyone. So that, I think, is where, like, it's really nice, and like, it's not so threatening that you feel like, oh god, samey. It was like, at least not yet.
Yeah.
But with the StarCraft stuff, it's like, the whole thing is designed, for power reasons and for synergy reasons, to be very insular, right? to like, you draw this stuff to do the thing. And so in that sense, I understand why you kind of can't take away the 2 targeted draw, but you have to make it, like, actually have a cost, right? Like, now I think all of these are of a cost where they are not about the incidental effect, right? It's not about the 3/4 charge or the 2/1 starship piece anymore. It's about the draw, and you're kind of taking a turn to draw when you play them.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It turns it into something, again, more of a decision, like we were saying with Ceaseless Expanse.
Yeah.
We're also getting a hit to Zerg Egg Hunter, or really just Hunter in general, where Amphibian's Spirit is going from 2 mana to 3 mana. That card is insane, so I'm sure it'll still be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, with eggs in particular, right? Just sets up these crazy sticky boards, and because of Dreadscale Stalker, I think it's called, or something like that.
Terror Scale Stalker.
That's the one.
The trigger, the Death Rattle guy, right?
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's leapfrogs, right? Because you play this on something, you play that to trigger the Death Rattle, so it goes on a different minion, and you've still got the one there. So like,
so now you have two of them.
Yeah, it creates the loop where it's like you kill one thing, it hops, but the other minion also has it's a mess.
I have had boards when I was playing Zerg Egg Hunter. I have had boards survive threads. I once had a board survive like a double threads because the Amphibian Spirit kept jumping to the thing that hadn't died yet.
Yeah.
So it. And you can do these crazy trades if you have to, if you're in an aggro mirror. Because you trade off the thing with Amphibian Spirit, it jumps to the next thing. You trade that off, it jumps to the next thing. And all of that will still be possible. It's just not quite the same curve. You can't like coin egg, Amphibian Spirit the next time. It's so good with eggs too, because like the egg dies, and then the amphibian, even if it's your only minion, the Amphibian Spirit goes on the thing the egg summoned. It doesn't go away.
Jeez. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
and the thing that you were rushing things into that were trading off were usually Zerglings that were coming off the spawning pool, which is also going to be slower.
Yeah.
Something needed to happen to this deck because it's just like a close second to Location Warlock for best deck in the game. And at lower ranks, Zerg Egg Hunter is just running away with the meta like 65% or more.
It makes sense. It's like it's the hard aggro deck, but also is hard to deal with, right? Like, just like secrets, like aggressive secret decks often get people a lot better at lower ranks because folks can't play around it. I think playing around eggs is similar complexity that's challenging. And so, yeah, it was just like running over people.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like the Greybow problem, right? Where you have to clear the entire board all at once or else you never clear their board. I mean, it's not quite as bad as Greybow, but it's kind of the same thing. And there just like aren't a lot of decks that are set up to do that, at least that early. Like the big board clears will come up online a little bit later than that. Like Corpse Explosion is really the way that I would want to clear that as the Death Knight. And that's too early. Like not only can you not cast the Corpse Explosion, even if you can, you don't have enough corpses to be able to clear the board at that point.
Yeah.
So at least making that come
down. Maybe more
slowly.
corpses than you think.
Right. And then you don't have your corpses for other things that you want to be able to use them for. So it's like it just does it, making it come out as turn slower will make it a little bit easier to react to than it is like when it comes down like right now.
Yeah. That and the aforementioned like spawning pool slower means Hydralisk turn slower.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm sure we'll still have some sort of aggressive hunter going on, but it is going to be slower. The last two nerfs that we have here are both to kind of spam or decks, or scam decks, sorry, is what I meant to say. So both to kind of scam deck type things. We have Murmur going from 6 mana to 7 mana, Food Fight going from 3 mana to 4 mana. Food Fight mostly being used for the Briar Spawn Drake warrior deck.
Also Dungar from 9 to 10.
And also Dungar from 9 to 10. Yes.
I'm not going to play the music again, but yes.
Music again goes here for Travel Master Dungar. Yeah.
Dungar and Murmur are effectively the same play pattern, just different method. So, yeah.
And some of Dungar's worst matchups were Zerg Token Hunter. That was like, oh my gosh, there's a 15% win rate into Zerg Token Hunter. That's kind of hilarious. If that gets slower, then Dungar Druid maybe gets better. So it did have a really good win rate into Armor Demon Hunter, which is just not going to be a thing. Yeah. But I'm happy with safe than sorry for Dungar Druid.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, Murmur too. And one thing is like, Murmur does still keep the hunter location interaction, the Parrot Sanctuary, where if you play the Murmur, then activate the location, all your stuff that would cost 1 costs 0. So, yeah, it can still do silly things.
Yeah, and sometimes you would need like that extra turn anyway to get it set up. So, like sometimes you just don't have. Like it's more like you don't always draw Parrot Sanctuary.
Yes,
and those games, like then you need basically have set up Shutterwalk. I mean, it's actually gonna be a little bit cleaner because it lets you curve Shutterwalk into Murmur, which is that's sometimes a little bit awkward, but like you will have to like curve Shutterwalk into Murmur Ysera, which is it's still gonna be 8 mana, right? Then you get the mana back, then you can do whatever you want. If you don't draw the location, like the games where you don't draw the location are going to be that much slower, and it's going to give your opponent a lot of time to be able to just get under you and kill you before you get a chance to go off.
Yeah.
And it gives them a little more time if they are a more reactive deck to assemble what are they going to do about this when you do pop off. So
yeah.
And the food fight thing is just because they're doing it with Briarspawn Drake.
Yeah.
Right? If it was with Isandra, I don't think there would be a huge cry about it. But the fact that it was Briarspawn Drake and sometimes you just killed people, it's that thing of like being punished for running minions that sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even know. I mean, it's not a great deck in general. Like it wins a lot just because there's some decks that it just punishes.
Yeah. It's a scam deck.
I don't know if this is going to make a material difference for that, because you're still getting the Briarspawn Drake out way sooner than you otherwise would, but you still have to kill the thing off, which sometimes can take a couple turns to do that, and that's gonna be what's really gonna slow it down.
Well, and it puts it more in line with Chemical Spill.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's not that you're not cheating stuff out. I mean, Briarspawn Drake is the kind of thing you try to find a way to cheat out. You don't play that for 10 mana, but you're not cheating it out nearly so early. And I think it also goes into the dev comment about them focusing on play patterns more than win rate. I would love if we do get a Ysandra Dragon Warrior at some point, just because of meta changes. I don't know if we will, but maybe there'll be more room opened up.
Yeah, it's really my hope that removing a lot of these play patterns and specifically the StarCraft stuff means that we see a lot more imbue things that we wanted and hoped to see. Because I think 0 imbue decks were playable.
I mean, a lot of that also is just
sort
that,
of imbue mage.
Yeah, even then, like that, like the imbue mages drop the imbue also. Like all of the imbue decks kind of drop the imbue eventually. Like the imbue hunter ended as the demon hunters went away, then it transitioned over to like the Zerg and the Zerg egg hunter. Like the Protoss mage dropped the imbue and just went all in on the Protoss stuff. Imbue priest lol. We'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah.
I mean, and like paladin and druid just like couldn't keep up either. So, and shaman was never a thing to begin with. So hopefully this will allow at least one of the imbue classes to kind of start imbuing again. Like I could see the mage dropping the Protoss stuff and going back to imbue if there's a reasonable chance of being able to get that damage through. I think that the real reason that it wasn't is just because of all the health and the armor between like Death Knights and everything else, that you just never were able to get there with just like with just the damage from the hero power and the Ascena. It was never enough to get there.
Yeah.
So
and Colossus is just so much more damage.
Yeah.
And I do think there's a possibility that Colossus remains too much damage, such that people are willing to do the nerfed Artanis and Chrono Boost, right? That they sort of pay that tax in exchange for just massive, board clear and nuke. We'll have to see.
I mean, you're generally waiting until like 10 anyway to start going off with the Colossi, because you want to bounce it with the Youthful Brewmaster. If you don't need the Youthful Brewmaster anymore, then maybe it's still viable if you can use those other two card slots for something else.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we also have a few buffs speaking of imbue, so I'll start with Resplendent Dreamweaver. It's going from being a 5/4 and dealing 5 damage if you've imbued twice to being a 4/4 and dealing 4 damage with lifesteal.
Okay.
Yeah.
At least it gives you a reason to play it, right? Like 5 damage to a minion is like, you could just like, resonant coil something for 3, right? And you don't really care about the 5/4 body necessarily. This at least is 4/4, but also you heal 4 and remove something. Yeah, maybe that again, you're putting more card slots into an imbue deck where you're already pretty much having to run, outside of Druid, you're having to run all 8 of the imbues to make sure that you're getting enough imbues and getting them on time. But maybe in those kinds of decks, maybe that's good enough. I don't know.
It's a glowstone gyreworm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Which
I mean,
I
4 instead of 5, but yeah, I like that it sort of is in more keeping with how a lot of the imbue decks function, which is you have to be sort of powerfully defensive so that you can hero power. And as it was before, I mean, we had a druid dragon that was essentially the same thing. It was a 4 mana 5/4 that dealt 5 damage to a minion, and that felt quite strong because it was a kind of aggressive deck. Some of the dragon decks. Also, you were a druid.
You were also usually playing a taunt on the same turn, refreshing your mana crystals, and then playing that.
Exactly. And so the dragon text was very relevant, right? This doesn't have a minion type, and it has a requirement that you are running imbue stuff. The other thing had, yes, a requirement that you had dragons, but also was a dragon. It sort of worked more. Switching over to deal 4 and have lifesteal, I think, is just kind of more in line with what the imbue decks need. And I a lot of times was like looking for reasons to not run Dreamweaver before, and now it's much more appealing.
Yeah, and it's important to keep in mind that the lifesteal is not just on the battle cry. Also, the body has lifesteal.
Yeah, huge deal.
So, like, you're going to hopefully be able to attack with that and then gain some more life after that, which is not nothing. So, I mean, it's almost certain. Like, I mean, things get removed, things get board cleared, but it's minimum 4 healing, probably 8. And that's if you're not forcing an opponent to trade into it multiple times, or you get multiple value trades with it. So, I mean, it's, again, in those decks that are going to be slower, that are going to need the healing, then that's just some healing that you get to throw in. I like the change. I don't know if it's going to be good enough to justify running the minion, but I like the change.
Yeah.
Yeah. We also have Aspect's Embrace, which is the Shaman Imbue card. I think 2 mana, heal 4, Imbue. It will now also draw a card.
I mean, at least it replaces itself now. It's something.
I still don't want to run it because it's not a minion, and the deck is an evolved deck. It wants minions.
But it gets a minion into your hand by replacing itself.
Maybe, but it doesn't put one in play for me to use that hero power on. Like, this is one of those, and I, in the case of Mage, I kind of get why they didn't do it this way, but I sort of feel like Shaman should have gotten the 2-drop minion that imbues, and Mage should have gotten the 2-drop spell. Mage has that 2/1 where you get a wisp, right?
Yeah.
If Mage instead had even not draw a card, right? Just the Aspect's Embrace, maybe it's gain 4 armor and imbue instead of, because Mage doesn't restore life, but because you can discover it. And I think they explicitly didn't do that because you could discover it. And they wanted there to be a cap of how high Mage could imbue. But I don't think it would have been that catastrophic. It would have felt very magey. And it just feels kind of egregious that Shaman, just like with Excavate, right? Where they got the deal 8 damage excavate card, right? They get the spell imbue card for a deck that is specifically needs minions.
I mean, they also got the excavate reward that was actively bad for you. That evolved all the minions in your deck, right? So, like...
Yeah. I mean, even ignoring that. Yeah.
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 Well,
I mean,
we also have...
anything it can get will help. But, yeah, I don't know if this is going to be good enough.
Yeah. No, it certainly feels like a reasonable change in that you might think about running it now. But, yeah, Imbue Shaman needs help. For Druid, which I've actually been seeing a few Imbue Druids
do you want to talk
around.
about the other Shaman card that got buffed before we go to Druid?
What?
There's another Shaman card that got buffed?
Yeah, did I not put it in the show notes?
You did not put it in the show notes.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, so there's also they also have Living Garden, which is the 3-mana 2/3 battle cry imbue your hero power, reduce the cost of a minion in your hand by 1. That's going up to a 2/4.
Cool.
Fine. I mean, at least it's not embarrassing stats. It'll value trade something once in a while. So.
Well, and value trading is very important for the deck.
Right, because you want to trade something
it's much
off
more
and
likely
then
to
evolve it. Yeah.
Yeah. Much more likely to live to be evolved.
Yeah.
All right. For Druid, Symbiosis, which is the one that discovers a choose one card from any class. The discovered card now costs 1 less, so it works like a lot of discover spells do, where you essentially get a refund on the cost that you spent for the spell itself, because Symbiosis costs 1.
Yeah. Fine. I mean, it makes it reasonable. I mean, this is the way they design those cards now. I'm surprised they didn't do it this way, but also Druid doesn't need the help, or didn't. So, Druid doesn't generally have a problem with mana, but, it does suck to pay a 1 mana premium on a card that you don't really get to choose exactly what it is anyway. So, fine. Yeah, that's fair. They can have this one thing.
I could see Imbue Druid with the changes that we're having here. I, wouldn't be terribly surprised if it starts seeing some play. I feel like it's close as it is. But it's just because they're big dumb bodies that don't do anything with all the StarCraft stuff running around, there's just no way,
Yeah.
All right. And then we also have, saved for last, 2 changes to Priest. So Kaldorite Priestess, which is the imbue card that's a 4-mana 4/4 and causes all the enemies to have 2 less attack until your next turn. It is now a 3-mana 3/3 and still has imbue, and all the enemy minions have 2 less attack until your next turn. So it's a lot easier to fit in.
Yeah. I mean, that battle cry, when we tried it in theory crafting, was occasionally relevant, and in the pre-release brawl was occasionally relevant.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is the kind of gameplay where that's going to be, but at least 4 mana is so much to not. I mean, because you need to be able to start using your hero power when you're doing this, and if the imbues are costing you that much, it's just really hard when you already have to play the Divine Shield Taunt, which costs 4 mana. And if this also costs you 4 mana to be able to imbue, then it gets really, really difficult. At least if you can curve the Divine Shield on 4 into this and hero power on 5, that's at least a little bit more reasonable. I don't know if this and the other change are going to make Imbue Priest enough, because I feel like Imbue Priest has bigger problems than this, but it wasn't helping.
Yeah.
It does help the curve a lot. You can also play this on 3, into Flutterwing on 4, into now you're, and if you started with Lunar Wing Messenger, which is the 2-mana imbue that has elusive. Does it also have lifesteal? I'm remembering that.
Well, Lunar Wing Messenger is the lifesteal. The other 2/3 is just the vanilla one.
Right, but Lunar Wing Messenger was a 3/1. It will now be a 3/2.
This doesn't die to a ping.
Yeah.
That's something. I mean, when you are a lifesteal minion, and the idea is that the trade-off of you paying 2 mana for a bad minion is that you're going to at least get some healing off it. If they can just kill it with a fire blast, then that's bad.
Uh-huh.
So at least they have to spend an actual card to kill this and maybe give you 3 healing in the process. But
yeah,
again, I don't know.
So like they're helping the curve significantly, and I think the fact that you've got 4 2-drops now that you can go into Priestess on 3, Sunwing on 4, and like feel pretty good about Priestess on 3 and Sunwing on 4 in terms of if you're facing something more aggressive, like you nix their attacks on turn 3, and then by the time they can, Sunwing comes down, Divine Shield taunt, and you've traded into something with your 3/3. That's nice, but I think the fundamental issue is that picking from 2 cards is not good enough.
Well, and also that you have to run all 8 of those in your deck generally, because you need to be imbuing and getting the value off of them. And you need to be imbuing multiple times in this deck in order to really make it worth it. Because if you're not at least refunding the cost of your hero power, then you are like stuck in the mud with a deck like this.
Yeah. Although I do almost wonder if there may at some point be a deck that just runs like Calderay Priestess as like and like maybe one other imbue thing as like it's better value than the healing hero power, and like we're largely a control tools deck, and then just have the imbue as like backup.
Yeah. Maybe if we bring Void Ripper back into core, we can start doing that. But otherwise, I don't think that's what we're doing.
The Priestess is also now, I think, a reasonable card on her own, even if you don't care about the imbue that much. Because you now have 3 mana, all of the enemy minions have 2 less attack on your turn and on their turn.
Yeah.
So, and then
the Priestess
your
is
hero
good.
power again.
If you
really
don't care about your hero power at all, then yeah.
Well, it has the side benefit of if you end up in a really grindy thing, you have a little more value.
Right.
And you're not using your heal hero power that much in faster matchups anyway, because you usually don't have the mana for it. So I could see that maybe happening where we're just running Priestess and maybe one other thing, like Flutterwing, because it's a taunt Divine Shield.
Maybe that's good enough. I don't know. It's
maybe
I am waiting for Imbue Priest to impress me. Maybe there's like a Draenei Imbue Priest that's going to come out after these buffs. I don't think that's likely, but we've got to do that in the pre-release brawl, and that was good when there were no cards in the format. So
So there is, and I am not endorsing this deck, to be clear, listeners, but in low sample land, where anything is possible,
aka Magical Christmas Land, yes.
There is an Aviana Priest running Tyrande and Champions of Azeroth, and I think that the idea is if you double Champions of Azeroth, you have a 64% chance of hitting Antonidas. If you do it twice, you have an 87% chance of hitting an Antonidas on at least one of them.
That is 100% the plan. Yeah.
And then once Aviana goes live, then you kill them with fireballs.
Yep.
And people are apparently winning with this, but again, like very low sample land.
Yeah. I mean, Priest has ways of clearing big things. They've got the Shadow Word Death, and then also Ruin, and then Shadow Word, or not Shadow Word, Light
Bomb.
Light Bomb. There you go.
It's been that long, huh? It's been that long since we've had a viable control priest. I don't blame you. It really has been that long.
Well, and I play against these things.
Yes, I know.
And then repackage. Whether you run all 6 of those, I don't know. Probably not, because you need hand space.
Well, plus Moonwell, right? Like we probably, if we're doing a slow priest, we probably want to be Moonwelling.
It depends on the threats you're seeing, but yeah.
Yeah, it depends on whether 4 is too low.
That also can. Well, I mean, it's for that goes face.
It is for that goes face. It's good as a Tyrande hit, but
if you're killing with fireballs, you don't care.
Well, sometimes you don't get enough fireballs.
That's not true. You're spending 1 mana on them.
Sometimes you don't get the Antonidas is more accurate.
I guess. I think if you don't get the Antonidas, you lose. But
yeah. Anyway, and it is a very slow game plan, so we'll have to see. But I think that can bring us to, there's just a few bug fixes in this patch. So Shaladrisil was getting corrupted by opponents playing things.
Weird.
It is no longer getting corrupted by opponents playing things. Transforming a dragon no longer transforms what comes out of Horrible Egg from Clutch of Corruption.
Yeah. So I guess I think from what this is saying is that if somebody had a Briarthorn, right, and you hexed it, and they had made a copy of it with Clutch of Corrections, they have the egg on the board, and then after they've done that, you hex the Briarthorn. When the egg popped, it would be a frog, which is hilarious, but not the way it's supposed to work.
So now it works correctly.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Almost sad, but if we want to have something like a dragon warrior, it's probably for the best that they fixed it.
Yeah.
So then there's just a couple things with signature cards and disenchanting. So signature Xavius was previously not able to be disenchanted. Now he is. If you really would prefer to have the dust, then you can disenchant him. Just remember, you cannot recraft signatures, but it is a lot of dust. So they also fixed signature Gorgonzormu not disenchanting for full dust after it was nerfed. It is now eligible for full dust during this new dust refund window. Which, by the way, here is your reminder. We just had changes. Make sure to check your collection, disenchant things that you want to disenchant. You can always recraft things later. So, like, if you're not actively playing Murmur Shaman, just disenchant Murmur. You can always make him again later without having lost dust. So
cool. Well, we made the mistake of mentioning the words short episode. So of course,
that's it.
Yep.
You jinxed it. That's it.
Yeah.
We thought, oh, well, is it going to be enough to just talk about the balance patch?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it was. Yep.
Yep.
We are like Dory from Finding Nemo. We just forget every single time that this is what we do, and then we're surprised when we end up at a 2-hour mark when we have like 3 things in the show notes.
Yeah. Well, yeah, maybe we can figure out a system. But anyway, that's going to do it for our show today. We have many folks we'd like to thank. Check out the thanks section on the website at Concede.com, where you can also find our contact info, our show notes, and our Patreon information. You can monetarily support our show at patreon.com/CoinConcede. Join us every week live by following us on Twitch at twitch.coinconcede.com. Join our community chats in our Discord at discord.coinconcede.com. And write into our email at coinconcede@gmail.com. Follow us on Blue Sky at CoinConcede. And if you'd like some CC swag, head on over to our shop at shop.coinconcede.com. So, CoinConcedes. So I have one this week, which is to, I guess, it's a book called Drawn Onward. It's a children's book. I guess, sort of, if we're saying people, I would say to the author and illustrator of this book, Daniel Nayeri and Matt Rockefeller. I was in my local bookstore, which is cool that we have one, and was like on my way out, and it just caught the corner of my eye. And the art, I was like, that looks like Blink from Wind Waker in terms of art style. I have a link to an article from the creators talking about the book and the idea for it. The book is a palindrome in terms of the words. It doesn't have very many words, but they managed to write it in such a way that when you get to the middle spread, it flips, right? And just with some changes of punctuation and like where sentences start and stop, the words going back the other way take on different meaning, even though they're the same as the front half of the book. Beautiful art style, again, very Zelda coded, or I guess Link coded, about a little boy who I think has lost his mother, and is grieving, and sort of how he goes on this journey where he comes out on the other side of it, transformed. Stunning artwork, and again, it is like mostly artwork. And I was smitten. I had to buy it. If you have kids, definitely check it out. It says ages 4 to 8, but like, I read it to Leah. I feel like you can sort of read it and just show pictures for an older kid. I kind of like filled in the graphic novel like panels with words to kind of explain what was going on. But it just was, it made my week, honestly.
That looks awesome.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to concede to Nintendo for giving me an hour's break from the horrors of the world by announcing the Switch 2 this week. And I've already registered for my intent to purchase. I can actually pre-order it from them. And because she doesn't listen to this podcast, the oldest needs a graduation present. So
there you go. She's
graduating like a week before this comes out. So it'll be good timing. It's going to be very expensive, but we still have to get her a laptop also, which we probably need to buy now before they get incredibly more expensive. But yeah, so that was a nice fun diversion from all the horrors of the news, and then everything went to crap later the day. But whatever, that's fine. We had that hour. It was fine. It was nice to nerd out to a Nintendo Direct with everybody again. So.
Yes. Well, I will concede to the guy at the Apple Store. He was very helpful and very relieved when I knew my password. I was like, this must be the story of your life. And he's like, you have no idea. Which, by the way, I'm not saying I'm perfect with passwords. I then went to work and I was very grateful I had to cancel because it took me the whole hour to get into the school portal. So I am not a perfect person on this either. But because the thing in my password manager was wrong. So it doesn't help when the password manager is wrong. It turns out it had been somehow being filled in by the browser only on that machine. Anyway, hopefully there aren't other things like that. I will also concede to Deck Tracker because playing without it for a couple days made me realize that I really enjoy having it. It's probably good for me to play without it every so often, but I'm glad that I set it up on my loaner laptop for the moment while I'm waiting to get my actual laptop back, and it's making me think I should try to figure out how to have some sort of PC for this, because it really is a lot nicer on the PC. But I am grateful that it exists on Mac at all, because there are a lot of things that just don't exist on Mac at all. So thank you for having it on Mac, even if it's clearly not really made for Mac. So
better than nothing. So.
It is.
Well, that is going to do it for us for this week. So until next time, keep calm and don't play your spawning pools on one. And if you see us on ladder, concede.
Concede.
Concede.